Okay, in this section we're going to have a look at using indicators with the MetaTrader 4 platform. I'm not necessarily going to spend too much time telling you how to use them because that's actually the purpose of the how to find great trades section. So what we are going to do is we're going to look at how to set them up and configure them on the MetaTrader platform. So that's the purpose of this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with moving averages because they're something which everybody uses. We tend to, in fact, if you have a quick look at one of the charts that we tend to use something called what we call the Fibonacci cloud. It's basically a fan of moving averages of longer and longer periods, which helps us to establish, kind of like when trends have been established and when they're starting to collapse in on themselves. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to create your own moving average cloud, and then hopefully you'll be able to see the uses of it as we create it on the chart. Like I say, for more information about moving averages and other indicators, do check out the video in the How to Find Great Trade section. So the way that we do that is we go to if you click on this button here, this basically allows you to select your indicators. This is like a frequently used list. So at the moment, I've actually got moving average in there. You probably won't if this is the first time you've used the system. That's almost like a shortcut. So, but you'd find it under trend because it's a trend tool. So we click on moving averages. And then basically it says, right, okay, I've got some questions for you. So what it wants to know is the period of the moving average, i.e. how many price bars are we taking an average of. It wants to know the method that we're going to use. So you've either got simple, which basically, if let's say that we're going to start with the 34. So if we're starting with a 34, that basically means that it's taking the average of the last 34 bars, and it's using the close price. You don't need to worry too much about that because that's pretty much what every moving average under the sun will use, unless you're doing something fancy where you've got moving averages which are kind of like the same period but applied to different price charts. But don't worry about that for the time being. That's slightly more advanced. So the two prices that you pretty much got are simple, as in literally take the last 34 bars divided by 34 and give me that price, or exponential. An exponential is the one that you'll most commonly use because what that does is it says take the last 34s, divide the price, but give more weight to the more recent bars, because what that does is it allows you to have a more responsive moving average. And again, like I say, we'll cover this in greater detail. And then it wants to know the line color, and this is very much like the controls that we use when we're drawing horizontal and trend lines. So I'm going to make that a green line. I'm going to have it as lawn green. So that's my 34 period moving exponential moving average. So I click on that, and lo and behold, I actually have a line on my chart. So if I just zoom in slightly so that we can see what's going on, hit the end key, and that basically takes me to the end of the price action. So as you can see, that's going through. You can also see one of the reasons why we start to use things like the 34, because do you see how price is moving and bouncing off it? So that looks to me like a fairly well established downtrend, and price is coming up and it's bouncing off the 34. So just in the same way that you've got support and resistance from horizontal lines and trend lines, you've also found that moving average lines also give you what we call dynamic support and resistance, i.e. they move around. So they're not static like a horizontal line is. So what I can then do is I can then add another one. So I'm going to go to my drop down list and either click on moving average there, or you'll probably have it now in here, and I'm going to add my next one. My next one is going to be a 55, and I'm going to make that gold. The rest of it is all the same. Now, as you can see, the 55 isn't in the same place as the 34. That's because the 55 reacts slightly slower because it's an average of a larger number of bars. Okay, but as you can see, it's forming, basically it's what we call the cloud, so it's like a fan format, if you like. And as you can see, the 55 is sat above price action. And I'm going to add another moving average, and I'm going to add the 89, and I'm going to have that in a nice I'll go for red colour, I think. We tend to use these because they're kind of like traffic lights. So let's zoom out slightly. Yeah, so as you can see, that basically gives you a very nice. You've got a nice downtrend going on. You can see it's quite well established. Your moving averages are then confirming that because you've got the cloud happening. And if we then zoom out a little bit more and then go back, what you can do is you can see that the cloud kind of forms itself and then collapses into itself depending on what price is doing. So as you can see, that's an uptrend. So the cloud forms into a line. And then when price action starts to come below it, it kind of collapses in on itself. We'll cover more about that in moving averages themselves. But that should give you an idea of basically how moving averages work. If you want to amend it, you right-click, and then that will tell you, give you the options to either delete it or do something with it. And if you hover over it as well, it will then help you to identify which one it is. So if you just leave your mouse hovering over it, it will eventually come up and say moving average 55. There you go. So that's how you add and delete and edit moving averages. One of the next ones we're going to look at is an indicator called MACD, which stands for Moving Average Convergence and Divergence. So I'm going to go to this one, and then I'm going to go to oscillators, because MACD is an oscillator, and then I'm going to click on that. The settings here you don't need to worry about. To be honest, the MACD tends to use 12, 26, and 9 as its standard settings, and because a lot of people use MACD, and they'll pretty much all use it with those settings, with the exception of a few people who will tweak it, then because those settings are shared by everybody, they become quite powerful, because if everybody's looking at the same picture, a lot more people are going to make the same sort of decision. So it gives you some idea of what the market is thinking. So we click through, and that's basically our MACD. Again, in terms of how it works and what you'd use it for, that's covered in the section. But that's basically how you add it in. So you go to your indicators, on oscillators, click on MACD, and it will then give you the ability to do that. If you want to click on it, I mean, to be honest, with any of these indicators, if you right-click on it, you then should be able to see the properties for it. And again, you can then change the color. So if you want that to be, I don't know, let's say deep pink, and it to be nice and thick because that's kind of your thing, then there we go. If you think the world is a better place if your MACD looks like that, then good luck to you. But that's how you would do it. If you then want to remove MACD from your chart, then you'd right-click and then say delete indicator window, which is just there. Now that's how it works for most of the other ones as well. So let's have a quick look at, we're going to add in the stochastic oscillator, which is just there. And again, 533, that's a fairly common setting. This one is rather than having histogram, it's two lines, which is basically a fast and slow moving average. One of which is a moving average of a moving average, and they kind of chase each other up and down. And again, in terms of how those are used, refer to the section on stochastics. If you want to edit it, again, right-click on it, and then you can change the lines and colors and do other bits and pieces. If you want to resize it, then you can do that, and then obviously kind of make it as large or as small as you want. If you want to change where the lines are, again, if you click on that, you click on levels. With a lot of these oscillators and things like that, you're going to find that there's actually levels. So for instance, with the stochastic, that indicates that it's overbought, i.e. the price is kind of probably about as high as it's going to get. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come down. It can actually stay in overbought for quite some time. But these lines here, the 80 and the 20, if you want to change those for any particular reason, i.e. it's part of a strategy which says use, kind of like stochastic on a 75-25 setting, for instance, then what you can then do is click on your levels and then make that 25, if I say that, and then say OK. As you can see, our level has now moved to 25. And just like with the other one, if we then decide that we've had enough of stochastics, we then delete that indicator window. So another popular one is the Bollinger Band, and I'm going to make that stand out a little bit. So it's going to look like that. To be honest, what we normally tend to do with Bollinger Bands is make them dotted just so that they're not quite so shouty. There we go. So that then allows you to have a Bollinger Band on your chart. It's normally 20 period and 2 deviations. Again, you don't need to worry too much about that. It's just a standard setting which they have. You can change those settings if you are looking at slightly higher or slightly shorter time periods. So that is your Bollinger Band there. Again, you can find out more about Bollinger Bands, but as you can see, they basically form lines of dynamic support and resistance, and there's quite a few trading strategies that use them quite often as periods, places to take profit. So, you know, if you start there, for instance, as you can see, it tends to kind of, price tends to bounce backwards and forwards within the band, but don't be fooled by that, because obviously the band is determined by price, not price determined by the band, if that makes sense. So, but a lot of people then say, okay, if I'm going north here, then I'll take my profit when it hits the band, because the band is calculated to try and work out, you know, kind of the maximum parameters that price is going to move within. So again, if I want to edit it, I'll right-click on the properties of the band, and then I can change the color. So if I decide that I want to make it gold and it's going to be like that, then I can do it that way. If I want to get rid of it, then again, right-click, delete indicator, and that allows you to remove the Bollinger Bands from your charts. There are a few other indicators, as you can see. There's like indicators, oscillators, there's volumes, and there's other bits and pieces like that. They all work in much the same way. As you basically select them, you can then add them to a chart. You can right-click on them and change their properties, and then you can right-click to delete and take them away. One of the things that you can do is you can then right-click on the indicators list. That then allows you to kind of like do stuff to an indicator without necessarily having to, you know, kind of like right-click on it. It's not a particularly helpful one, unfortunately, because it doesn't tell you what it is. So, for instance, if I wanted to do something to my 89 EMA, if I right-click and look at my indicators list, well, I don't really know which one is the 89 EMA. So I tend to work just straight off the chart in terms of amending them. That's how you add and remove indicators such as moving averages, MACD, stochastics, and all the rest of that good stuff to your chart.